All right. I believe we are live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the first episode of the new In the Boat with Ben podcast. This is exciting. So last week, I talked about how I had been in podcasting for a long time. And so I decided, or just over time, I kind of stopped doing that and got involved and busy with other things. And lately have just seen how great of a fit a podcast, and particularly a podcast that I also do a video stream for. It just makes so much sense in my content workflow and with the type of content I want to share and how that fits on my YouTube channel in particular. Um, so I'm really excited, and I'm gonna do a little pre-show. So one of the things I really wanted to set up is I wanted to have like a soundboard with some background music that I could play and stuff like that for the pre-show before we start the episode. I didn't get a chance to put that together, but I did get my microphone hooked up, so you should be hearing the audio from this microphone now instead of from the MacBook microphone, which, the MacBook microphone's not terrible, but it's just, it's not like nearly as good as the SM7B. I love this thing. So let me know if the audio sounds good to you. And I am currently just kind of looking through my notes, trying to warm up my voice a little bit, make sure everything is working properly. One of the things I did put into place that I'll be really excited to show you here in a minute is a new intro video. The intro video is just like, it's super short. It's like 3 seconds long. But back in the day when I was doing the original In the Boat with Ben podcast that was more focused on like family dynamics and that kind of thing, we had this animated video intro that was really cool. But it was, like when I went and checked it out yesterday, I was like, I'm going to use that again. And when I went to, hey Andrea, I've got a really bad habit, by the way, of just like stopping mid sentence to engage with the chat. So I'm going to really try hard not to do that. I have like these stopping points throughout the episode where I'm actually going to do that, instead of letting it distract me. But I saw that you commented and I had to say hi. So thanks for tuning in. So I looked at this intro that I made like, 6 years ago in After Effects, and it just doesn't hold up. And so I made a new one. I applied some of the new things that I had learned about how to use After Effects and that kind of thing. And I like it. It's better than the previous one. So I will share that with you in just a moment. But yeah, so today's topic, work-life balance, it's something that you hear a lot about if you're in SaaS, startup, creator culture, any of that. It's a really big theme right now. People are, especially, with the pandemic, which I'm not going to talk about, but people are burning out, really struggling with mental health. And sometimes, work is an escape from all of the difficult things in the world. And then sometimes you just want to, sit down in your favorite chair and you read your book and not do any of your creative work. And there's kind of this constant push and pull between, the things that we want to do professionally, that we're trying to create, and then trying to make time for ourselves or for our families or for our friends or whatever that is. And so, and there's not really, at least as far as I've seen, there's not a super satisfying answer for like, how do you find work-life balance? And so my question has been and continues to be, is that a real thing? Like, is there such a thing as work-life balance? So that's kind of what I want to get into in today's episode, which I probably should also make part of the podcast. The good thing about the way I have it set up is I'm actually recording all of this. So this is technically the pre-show, but I can go back later and I can, edit and bring over any of the stuff that I want to into the regular show. And then I think I'm going to do like a pre-recorded intro and outro bumper sort of thing. So you get the live experience. You get like the raw, like I might even stop myself in the middle of something and be like, I didn't like that. I'm going to say that again in a better way. Or I might just leave all of the mistakes in. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, okay. I think we're ready to go. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Here's the intro that I was so excited about. Here it goes. Welcome to the In the Boat with Ben podcast. I am your host, Ben Tolson, and on this show, we talk about things related to creator lifestyle, and that's a pretty broad phrase. That covers a lot of different things. And I'll for those of you watching live, I'm going to definitely record something that's more succinct, but I'm going to try to do my best to kind of explain it in as few words as possible starting out. So on my main channel, I've really been wanting to focus that content on my main YouTube channel, because that's part of what helps as a creator who's trying to grow an audience. That's part of what helps you grow, is connecting to a more specific audience. And so I was finding that I wanted to do kind of two different things. I wanted to share specifically about video production and the video production process for creators, for people who want to grow an audience, sell things online, share their art, whatever. Video is just, it's kind of becoming the new like website. There, once upon a time, it was like, oh, you got to have a website. And now I really feel like for most people, having some sort of video presence just becomes such a strong way for them to connect with their audience. And it's a huge opportunity. So I wanted to be someone who could help folks with that process who have never turned on a camera before or feel super uncomfortable being in front of a camera. I know that's a big struggle for a lot of folks. So that's kind of the primary focus. I talk with my hands a lot and I keep bumping my stand here. So anyways, but I also love encouraging creators. So I love talking to creators about how their voice is worth sharing, that the thing that makes whatever they're doing special is the unique perspective that they bring to it. And so just, being really affirming, encouraging, motivational. And I love encouraging creators as well. I love letting them know that they're not alone in their struggles and that kind of thing. But I didn't want to do this thing where I was like, going back and forth with different types of videos on this channel. And then I thought, I had this podcast a long time ago called In the Boat with Ben. And that title, it's so general that really I could make it about anything. It's just, me talking into a microphone about things that I care about. And so why not use that and talk about, and two, the people who I care about, which is you creators out there. I care about you. I care about your well-being. I care that you feel emotionally and mentally healthy enough to bring into the world the things that you have inside of you to share. Um, because gosh, what a tragedy when life gets you down and things prevent you from sharing those things. And so I really want to be a voice that calls that out of people and helps them. And that's what ultimately this show is really focused on. What I really hope to accomplish. And I guess one of the ways that I like to talk about it is these are all things that I needed and continue to need to hear for myself. I need that encouragement. I need not like I need someone to tell me I'm special, but like I need to be reminded that my perspective and my voice and my unique style of delivery could connect with someone in a way that somebody else's wouldn't be able to, and that matters. You know, um, I need a kick in the pants every once in a while to like get going on something and make progress on a project. So these are all things that I need, and so I'm talking really mostly to myself, and I'm on this journey with you, and so I just want us to kind of discover these things together. I'm an educator. That's kind of the primary thing that I do for my full-time job is I create educational content meant to help creators, in particular with things related to making money on with digital products, selling courses, and that kind of thing. And then a little bit of that is going to be expanding into growing an audience and getting your work out there and noticed and that kind of thing. So I have kind of this instinct to be a little bit prescriptive, and I really want to try to rein that in a little bit so that this doesn't come across as much as like advice as it does just a conversation and me saying, these are the things that I'm trying. These are the things that I have found helpful for me. And so that's kind of the way that I want to approach what we're talking about on this show. So let's get into this topic. So the question on the table is work-life balance possible? I have 6 children. That's a lot. and so this question is definitely one that I've wrestled with a lot. Because there is kind of this pressure that I feel to make sure that I don't mess it up. Being a dad and raising human beings and sending them off into the world. I don't want to mess that up because I see some of the ways that I struggle, and I see some of the ways other people struggle, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if my children could become adults and be perfectly healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, and that would, like I kind of would wear that as a badge of honor. And now that I'm a little bit older and have more experience, I realize that that's not going to happen. That is impossible. None of us escapes childhood without some scars, some many more than others. But we all end up with things that we need to work through, things that we need to uh, things that we need to work on to get to a healthier place. But because of that pressure for years, like it was weighing on my mind constantly because I had these creative ambitions. I had work that I had to do to make money. I had friendships and other relationships, and like I felt like there were all of these different things in my life that were competing for my time and my attention and my energy. And it was clear to me that I wasn't the only one who felt that kind of frustration of being pulled in a dozen different directions. There are hundreds or thousands of books, podcast episodes, articles, videos, like just tons of material out there dedicated to helping people find balance. And in the title of this episode, I kind of boiled it down to work and life, but there are a lot of different models, right? So there's one that I've heard of called the four burners model, and the four burners breaks it out into work. So that could be professional work or creative work, self, so things that you do to take care of yourself, like sleep and eat and play, your family, and your friends. And so those are the four burners. And that model kind of talks about the four burners, and that if one is burning really hot, it's taking energy away from the other ones, and those ones can't burn as bright. Um, and so you kind of have to turn one down in order for the other ones to get more energy, and that kind of thing. And so there's just an exchange of energy between all four of those burners. I've also heard the metaphor of the spinning plates. I'm sure you have too. So, however many poles you want representing different areas of your life, and the plate spinner goes and like starts all the plates spinning, and then they get to the last one, but then the first one they started spinning is starting to wobble a little bit, and so they have to rush over there, and so it's got this really kind of frantic energy to it. And then there's another model that I've heard of that talks about it more as an integrated life. And so rather than it being four separate burners, you could kind of think of it as four separate circles, but these circles are kind of creating a Venn. I don't know, is a Venn diagram just two circles? So what is it called if it's four circles? Is it the same thing? I don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. So there are four circles. They each overlap at some point. And so, you've got some aspects of your work that also do serve yourself, and you've got some aspects of the time and energy you spend on yourself that serve your family, and some aspects of the time that you spend with your family that serve your friends, and et cetera. And it just kind of all flows together. So of those models, and I know there are other ones out there, but of those models, my favorite one to think about is the integrated model. And instead of four circles, I actually think about it in three. I combine family and friends into relationships, because between, so that, the family is a special kind of relationship, especially because you're spending every single day in the same space with these people. But friends can also kind of feel like family, and friends can also feel very distant, and like maybe you talk to them once a year. or once every 5 years or something like that. So I feel like there's a pretty wide spectrum, and I'm okay with grouping that into just one single category. So we've got work, relationships, and self. And I've already kind of defined what those different things are, but I'll just kind of go through. So, like, when I think about work, I'm thinking about my full time job. I'm thinking about the tasks that I do every week for my house, things like making lunches in the morning for my kids before they go to school, doing dishes, sweeping the floor, tidying, doing yard work, that kind of stuff. That's all work. And then relationships, I think about, and I've already just talked about that, but um, you got your immediate family, your extended family, and your friends. Basically, any any person or people that you invest your time and energy into would fall into the category of relationships. And then I would define self as my physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, passion, play, and service. All of all of those things, in one way or another, end up serving my personal overall well-being. And so how that looks integrated is you've got those three circles and they're overlapping, and kind of like I described earlier, each one kind of serves the other ones, and it's not necessarily like an even exchange of a finite amount of energy, but you can create positive feedback loops. You can unintentionally, or sometimes intentionally, I guess, create negative feedback loops that steal energy and steal time. So I don't think it's as simple as simply finding balance between those things. I think it's actually much more complex than that. So why are we trying to find balance? Why is balance so important? That's a question that it took me a long time to actually think, oh, I should ask that. Like, why? I think I understand the reasons, but like, what are the actual underlying reasons? So it could be feelings of guilt. Maybe you work a lot and you feel like you don't spend enough time on your relationships, and so you feel guilty about that. Maybe you think balance is the key. Like, if you, it's kind of like this magical key that if you could just achieve balance, then you could reach that goal that you've been working toward. Or maybe you think that finding balance would help you feel happier and more satisfied with your life. It could be a fear of disappointing other people. And I think a lot of these things kind of boil down to a cultural idea, kind of almost an indoctrination of balance, and the idea that you should have balance in your life. Like, if something is wrong, if something is off, it's because you don't have balance. And that's the problem. And in order to fix that, you have to find balance. And that's why those books sell. And that's why people watch those videos. And that's why people listen to those podcasts. And ironically, I'm making one of those podcasts. So we just talked about different models for work-life balance, talked about what it is. We've talked about what it is we're actually trying to balance and why it's so important to us to find balance. So before we go into the next section, I'm going to check in on the chat. Andrea says, that's a great intro. Thank you very much. You might hear my children screaming in the background. I promise they're okay. Their mother is watching them. All right. So this other thing, and this is like totally behind the scenes. This is what you get when you're watching live. So um, going to the chat is kind of like my quick intermission. It's my chance to engage with people who are actually listening live. Um, and when I go back to edit, I'm also looking for that segment so that I can cut it out and I'll put the two pieces back together. But because you're watching live, you get to hear me say, for some reason, I don't know if it's anxiety or it's being out of practice or it's the fact that I'm standing up. Probably a combination of all of those three things. Poor technique. I am out of breath right now. And so I'm just going to take a second. I'm going to catch my breath and then we're going to come back in. And I may have to pause to do that a couple of times. So give me just a moment. You can take some deep breaths with me too if you want to. I read it on Twitter the other day, I think. It said something like deep breaths are your nervous system's love language. I thought that was neat. All right, on to round two. So when I think about the different ways that people talk about work-life balance and the different models and that kind of thing, there's there's kind of this pattern that I see of talking about work-life balance through the lens of scarcity. And what that means is just this idea that most of the things people say about work-life balance and about like, making sure you're not working too hard, but also making sure that you're making time for your patent, like it's all about you only have so much time. You only have so much energy, and if you spend it here, you can't spend it there. And so there is a reality that we're dealing with. Like we do only have so much time. And there are only so many hours in the day. We do have, in a given day, we only have so much energy to spend. But like I was saying earlier, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. And there's there's another way that you can there's another way that you can approach this idea of work-life balance. I think that taps into something that is also true about how our time and our energy work. There are things that you can do that actually create time, that actually open up time for you. There are things that you can do that actually bring you more energy, that make you feel more energetic and more equipped and excited for things that you might need to do in your day. So, and so this approach is not, it's the opposite of scarcity, it's abundance. It's just this mentality that if I think about this differently and if I approach it a certain way, then there might actually be more there than I thought there was. So I kind of think of it like the Mary Poppins purse or bag. I don't know what is it. What did she have? But she put it down, she put it down on the table, and she reaches in and like she pulls out all of this stuff, and you're like, that shouldn't fit in there. When I watched that for the first time when I was a kid, I was amazed, you know. Um, but it's, like that kind of picture, that's delighting, like to think about our time and energy that way. Like we look at our day, or we look at ourselves, and we think, yeah, that bag, don't call yourself a bag, but that bag is only so big. It can only hold so much. And then to find that there's more. And so there's kind of almost this childlike, um, maybe naive, but this optimism, this hope that there's more than what we think there is. That there's this abundance. Maybe there is more than enough time to achieve the things that I want for each area of my life. Maybe I can thrive in my relationships. Maybe I can thrive in my personal health and well being. Maybe I can thrive in my work. And ultimately, and this is where I think the integrated model really comes in, is this idea that maybe giving my time and my attention to one area of my life also benefits and enhances the other things. Maybe it also energizes me for those other things. And so that's kind of the hope. That's the question that I'm still bringing to this idea of work-life balance is, can I have that kind of mindset that is kind of counterintuitive, that kind of goes against some of what I've experienced, and says there's more there than meets the eye. So one of the ways that, or one of the words that really comes to mind for me when I think about trying to create that experience of finding more energy and finding more time, is the word meaningfulness. And I want to explain what I mean. So meaningfulness is a word I would use, or meaningful is a word I would use to describe some activity that checks all of the boxes for something. And so like if I want to invest in my relationship with my spouse, for example, we could sit and watch TV, and that is meaningful to a certain point. But then we could also go for a walk in the neighborhood, and we could have a conversation, and that would be even more meaningful. As far as what I desire for that relationship, as far as my goals for that relationship, those are two different things that kind of, like they check the box of, I spent time investing in that. I spent energy investing in that. But one of those things is more meaningful than the other, even though you could spend the same amount of time doing them. I think that you can apply that principle to just about any area of your life. You could apply it to your work. You could apply it to, so when you, and this is kind of a weird example, but I think it works too. Like you could think about sitting down and having a meal. And I do this, like this is a habit that I have. I do this all the time. So I'm not trying to shame anybody for this, but I'm just saying, like, during the day when I'm working, I take a lunch break, and most of the time what that means is I bring my laptop down with me. I'm finishing up some work while I'm like preparing something. It's usually something snacky and quick because I don't have time to actually like make something nice and healthy. And so, and then I sit down with whatever it is that I've made, and I'm like, eating it, but not really paying attention to what I'm eating. And maybe I'll like switch over to YouTube and watch some videos. And, and so like I'm putting food into my body, but I'm not really paying attention to what I'm eating. I'm not necessarily eating something that's super healthy for me. Um, and even if it's, and so like there's a difference between that even and maybe I eat something that's not healthy, but it's so delicious and I savor it and I enjoy it. This is not that. This is me like watching stuff, zoning out, shoving food into my face. And that doesn't mean as much from like an eating standpoint as eating a healthy meal and or eating something that's really delicious but like being present for it. It's the same amount of time, um, roughly the same amount of energy depending on what you're preparing, but it means something different. And so I think meaningfulness is a good, and whatever that means to you, I think it's a good word to bring to anything that you're doing for any area of your life is how meaningful is this really? All right, I'm going to take a quick break and look at the chat again and take a breath, do a little bit of breathing. I need to look up some videos or something on how to control breathing while you're talking. So this is the thing too. I'm still talking and I'm not breathing, but when I was doing the podcast before, I was a co-host with somebody else. And so I would talk and then they would talk and I would just get to chill and breathe. And I think part of what's going on in my head is I'm like, I can't stop talking. I can't let there be dead air. And so I just don't breathe. And then I get out of breath and I have to stop and breathe. But it's not always going to be like this. I'm going to figure it out. All right, let's take some deep breaths together. Here we go. All right. My mom has tuned in. Colleen, or AKA Mom, as I call her, is in the house. Hi, Mom. It's good to see you. I love you too. All right. So for the last part of this, I kind of want to bring it all together and provide. So this is again getting into something that's a little bit prescriptive, but it's something that I'm also trying for myself. Um, this when it, when I realize that there's a potential for each area of my life to actually bring value to the other areas and that there could be kind of, that Mary Poppins bag effect, that it could be possible that there's more there, that there's more energy and there's more time if there's meaning, if I'm doing things that are more meaningful, then there's kind of this natural next step of like, okay, well, I kind of need to take an inventory. And so it's not something that I always remember to do on a regular basis. It's probably like I would like to do it something like every 3 months or, a quarterly spring cleaning of my life sort of thing. But it's probably something that actually happens more like every 3 years. But just taking an inventory and looking at the different areas of my life and thinking about what do I want for myself, and what are the things that I'm doing right now for myself? What do I want for my relationships? And what am I doing for my relationships? What do I want for my work? And what am I doing right now for my work? And then just asking, like, how meaningful, how connected are the things that I'm doing in each of those areas to the things that I actually want? Are they things that are truly meaningful, or am I just kind of going through the motions? Have I fallen into a rut somewhere? Am I feeling really tired and unmotivated, and so like the bare minimum is all I can do for now? um I think being able to look at those things, even if you're at a place in your life where you really don't have the bandwidth to do anything more meaningful than what you're doing now, like if sitting down and watching YouTube and shoving food in your, I'm not okay, it sounds so bad when I say it that way. If zoning out, watching other people's work and eating food and not like being present for that, like if the thought of doing anything more than that just feels exhausting, and that's where you are right now, that's okay. That's where a lot of people are. And I think it's good to at least be able to look at that and say, yeah, that is where I am. That's how I'm feeling right now. And then I think the next natural question to ask after that is, okay, well, why are you there? What are some of the possible, like, look at the world today and just ask yourself, like, what could possibly be the reason for you feeling burned out right now? And then I think there's room there, plenty of room there, to give yourself some grace and to say, yeah, there's I have a good reason to be here right now. I have a good reason. Like, I know what I want. I'm always gonna want things for myself. I'm always gonna want things for my relationships. I'm always gonna want things for my work that are probably beyond what I feel like I'm capable of giving to all of those things. So I think that's just generally true for everybody. But if you do look at those things, you do take an inventory, and you think, you know what? I think there could be something there that's more meaningful, that brings me more fulfillment, that actually energizes me for the other areas of my life. Like maybe there is, and I'm just curious enough to try something new, or to do something a little bit different, or like to do what I actually want to do. So I do want to sit down with my food and eat mindfully and like actually enjoy the experience of eating. I don't do that enough. And so like I'm curious enough to be like, what if I did that for like a week? How would I feel in other areas of my life? Like, how interesting would that be if I did that for a week, and then also found that because of that, like I was a better and more present listener for the people in my life who I care about. Just without like purposefully trying to do that, just the act of sitting down and eating mindfully trained my brain somehow to also do that with my relationships. That would be neat. So I don't know if I've really answered the question of whether or not there is such a thing as work-life balance. My take, actually, I'm going to take a quick break, take some breaths, and then I will finish it out with my take. Promise I'm going to get this breathing thing down eventually. I appreciate that you're sticking with me, though. Thank you. So Andrea says, for what it's worth, I now have 2 desks for work and personal. That's cool. That's like that's the kind of boundary setting. Like we didn't even get into like setting boundaries and stuff. Like I think that's an important part of it too. My studio where I'm standing right now is just a few yards away from my bed. So like zero boundaries between where I work and where I rest. That's not great. Um, all right. So let me try to remember what I was going to say. All right. So my take on work-life balance is it's really this idea I think that we have, this idealistic version of what we think we should be, and in some cases that idea is shaped by fear. In some cases, it's shaped by guilt. In some cases, it's shaped by what we believe is normal or expected. And what I have found is that whatever the root of the definition of work-life balance is, whatever the root of that definition is kind of how you end up engaging with it. And so, like, I want to reject anything that has the root of guilt. I want to reject anything that has the root of fear. I want to reject anything that has the root of this is what society says your life should look like. Like, forget all of that. But curiosity, what if there is more? What if there is balance? What if I can unlock more time? What if I can unlock more energy? Or on the other side of that, grace. I am where I am right now, and that's okay. And I don't have to explain or justify myself to anybody. That's where I kind of want to live. Somewhere between those two things, between curiosity and grace. So that's what I'm trying, and I hope that helps you. Yeah, stay curious, but also give yourself grace. And I hope whatever you're doing, however you're trying to find balance in your life, in your work, in your relationships, that ultimately you feel a sense of fulfillment, a sense of peace, and a sense of joy in those things. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to take a few more deep breaths and then I'm going to sign off. I wasn't sure how I was going to land that plane, but I think we got it there. All right, that was episode 1. This thing is back on. I'm really like, while I'm in the middle of it and kind of like talking through stuff, I was leaning super heavily on my notes today. Just like I have an outline here. I worked through all of it. Um, I want to do a better job in the future of like being familiar enough with my notes that I don't have to look at it as much or kind of, lean on it. I'd love to be a little bit more conversational, but I think all of that is going to happen with time. So I I really appreciate you tuning in and being here for this first episode. And I'm really excited to get this thing kicked off. It'll take me, I want to produce some number of episodes, maybe like 4 to 6, have them completely finished before I actually publish them uh, as a podcast. But these videos are going to be up on my YouTube channel if you ever want to refer back to something or whatever. So, but I will keep you posted here also on the live stream um, when those episodes release. So, uh, yeah, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Oh, I'm going to I'll do the intro one more time.